Acknowledgement. This video is produced and published on behalf of Sociocracy.Academy at the registered domain Sociocracy.Academy. Now let's continue. Enjoy your listening experience with the Sociocracy in Action video series by Adrian Zarif, founder of Sociocracy.Academy at Sociocracy.Academy. Imagine a workplace where decisions aren't just handed down from the top, where meetings don't drag on endlessly with little action, where every voice actually matters, not just in theory, but in real, everyday practice. This isn't a fantasy. It's what happens when organizations choose sociocracy. Let's step into the story of a real possibility. A few years ago, a small but growing nonprofit named ClearPath was struggling. Their mission was strong, their people passionate. But despite the enthusiasm, they were drowning in miscommunication. Teams overlapped responsibilities. Projects stalled without clear next steps. Decisions bounced back and forth without resolution. In the middle of this whirlwind was Sophia, their operations coordinator. She had tried everything: better agendas, stricter deadlines, even outside consultants. But nothing changed the core issue. No one knew who had the final say, and everyone was tired of guessing. That's when Sophia came across sociocracy. It was introduced to her as a system of governance. But soon she realized it wasn't just a system. It was a mindset, a new way of working. She brought the idea to her team. And slowly, ClearPath began its journey. The first thing they did was form circles, small, defined teams with clear aims and domains. Marketing had its own circle. So did fundraising, operations, and outreach. But unlike traditional silos, these circles weren't cut off from one another. They were connected, with double-linked representatives that make information flow in both directions, upward and downward. Right away, something shifted. People no longer felt lost in a sea of meetings. They knew which circle they were part of, what decisions they were responsible for, and who to talk to when clarity was needed. Authority wasn't removed, it was shared, and that created unexpected trust. Inside each circle, ClearPath began practicing consent-based decision-making. Now, this wasn't consensus. They didn't need everyone to love every decision. But they did need no one to have a reasoned objection. This small but powerful change meant that decisions moved faster, with greater alignment and less resistance afterward. In the beginning, it was awkward. People hesitated. Do I have the right to say no? What if I'm the only one who feels differently? But sociocracy encouraged them to speak up and, more importantly, to listen. Over time, objections weren't seen as roadblocks. They were invitations to deepen understanding. And with each round of decisions, something else started happening. Meetings became more focused. Proposals came with clear drivers, why this decision needed to be made. Roles were defined, reviewed, and adapted as things evolved. Accountability stopped feeling like pressure and started feeling like empowerment. Everyone knew what was expected and how their work fit into the whole. Then came the moment Sophia had been quietly waiting for. At the annual planning retreat, the entire organization, staff, volunteers, and even board members came together. But unlike previous years, this time, they didn't waste time arguing over who had the final say. They sat in a large circle, and each smaller circle reported back on their learnings and priorities. Decisions flowed easily, like water down a clear path. That's when someone turned to Sophia and said, "This feels so smooth." She smiled. It did feel smooth, because now there was clarity. But not just clarity in structure. Clarity in voice. On purpose. In responsibility. Everyone was rowing in the same direction, with space to adjust the sails when needed. Sociocracy hadn't given them a rigid framework, it had given them a living system. One that adapted, one that grew with them. Even conflict had changed. Instead of avoiding disagreements, teams brought them into the open. They used rounds to hear every voice without interruption. They created space for listening, space for clarifying and understanding. And most importantly, space for reshaping proposals so they work for all those involved in the decision-making processes. In sociocracy, flow isn't about doing things quickly. It's about doing them wisely, responsively, effectively. It's not about rushing through decisions. It's about removing the friction that holds decisions back. And when people feel heard, when roles are clear, and when decisions are timely, something magical happens. People trust the system, and they trust each other. That's what happened at ClearPath. And it's happening in organizations around the world. Sociocracy doesn't fix people. It doesn't remove all challenges. But it does change the conditions, making it easier for teams to thrive. It replaces confusion with clarity, chaos with coherence, and top-down control with distributed power. So, if your organization feels stuck, overwhelmed, or just too noisy to hear itself think, maybe it's time for a different kind of leadership. A leadership that flows from the inside out, not the top down. Maybe it's time for sociocracy.